Today we're going to share a little bit more of a personal story. I'm going to share with you how I almost drowned in debt, how I failed my Amazon FBA business before I even started, how I had no clue how to get the best price, and how I really, I wasn't depressed, but it wasn't really far away from that. So today you're not only going to learn how to negotiate the best price, but you're also going to learn my supplier hack that actually got me out of this failure and eventually enabled me to source more than 1,000 products in just the last few years. Because if you follow this hack, I promise you, you will never ever have any headaches sourcing in China anymore. You don't even have to talk to Alibaba suppliers anymore. This hack is what really saved me and what enabled me to go from a big failure to eventually making it. This hack will also enable you to always being able to get the best price possible. In 2013, I left Germany and I moved to China for what started as an internship, soon became a job. And sooner I hated it. I hated commuting to work. I hated to work the way that my boss wanted me to. And I really hated to make him rich when I thought, well, I could make myself rich. So I quit. And then it turned out it actually wasn't that easy. And I was broke constantly. I failed the Amazon FBA business before I even started. And when I say I was broke constantly, that means really broke, like very broke. I actually failed so many businesses that I piled up almost $250,000 of debt. But I got out of it, and in the last couple of years, I actually made it to source more than 1,000 products. So if you're new to this channel, usually we're speaking about sourcing, selling, and profiting from your private label product online. And if that's something that interests you and you want to hear more about it, just hit the subscribe button below to never miss out on new videos. So we gotta get real here, because I remember that so clearly. It was around 2 a.m. in the morning. My girlfriend was sleeping in the other room. And I had this really bad feeling. I was working like crazy for the past 2 months. But when I was sitting there, I was actually starting to sweat. I had this feeling in my stomach that, I don't know, I wanted to vomit. I had this headache creeping up from the back of my head. And it was really horrible, and all of that was caused by a message I got from a supplier. Like I said, the last 2 months before that, I actually tried to source my product, and I ran into so many difficulties. And maybe you can relate. Maybe you have contacted suppliers before and you feel like you just got drip fed with answers, right? You're constantly going back and forth, and actually that's partly because you're doing it wrong. And sorry to stick it to you like that, but there's a very specific process that you can follow to make this easy. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've already tried to contact suppliers and you feel like you're just getting drip fed with answers, right? You're constantly going back and forth with them, and you get mad because you feel like they're not coming back to you with the things you want to know. And I had the same thing. I was going through that process for 2 months trying to source my product. I filled it out multiple suppliers. I contacted some suppliers, and then I got messages from others, and I got quotations for products that I didn't even ask for. And when I finally got the samples, they didn't look anything like the picture. So after around 2 months, I was so relieved and so happy when finally my product was there. I finally made it after all of this work, and I was exhausted. I had the packaging, I had the product, and I thought I can finally go and start my Amazon FBA business, because I was running out of cash. I was living on my savings, and they were going fast. So I couldn't afford to source, to waste any more time on sourcing. Now, the problem is that I got a message from a supplier, and the supplier updated their quotation, and they say, well, look, due to all your changes, we updated the quote, and the price now was so high that I couldn't afford it. Even the MOQ, their minimum order quantity, had gone up, and I couldn't afford the product anymore. So I was crushed. I failed miserably. I felt like I failed my girlfriend. I failed my parents, who weren't happy that I quit my job initially. And most of all, I failed for myself. I realized that I didn't have the time anymore to go through and again spend another 2 months sourcing a product. I realized I had to go back to a job. I had to go back doing the things I hate for a really long time. I had wasted all of my savings that I could have spent, take my girlfriend to the beach, who had really spent a lot of time not doing the things she wanted to do because we were always broke, right? So I failed so bad. And that's the moment when I got this headache going up my head. And I remember just sitting in front of the computer, staring at it. I couldn't believe I got that email. And well, what could I do, right? So I went to bed. I barely slept that night. But I remember next morning somehow, and I don't know what triggered it, but I didn't want to give up. I didn't want this to be the end. I didn't want to go back to corporate. And so what I did is I was such a proud, guy. So I went over my pride and I called my mentor. And that guy had been actually getting me into the whole Amazon FBA thing. So I was a bit mad with him. I was like, well, your crap doesn't work, right? So I called him up and I said, well, look, how do you do it that you source multiple products at the same time? He actually sourced more than 1 million products. And I asked him, how can you source so many products at the same time? And I can't even manage to source one. What's going on? So he laughed a bit and he said, well, look, I'm not sourcing them. Like, what do you mean you are not sourcing the products? And he said, well, look, I have people for that. I have sourcing agents that are hired and they source for me. So they get a lot better prices. They do all of this stuff for me. They work, when I, just spend time with my girlfriend. So I thought, well, look, that's really cool for you. But now I'm really depressed and even more disappointed because I can't afford a sourcing agent. I can't afford to hire freelancers. I can't afford to hire a team. I completely ran out of money. How could I afford to hire anyone? And why would this be better anyway? Doesn't it, make a difference? How does it make a difference if I speak to a factory or if I speak to an agent? Isn't it the same thing? I'm speaking to a Chinese guy who's getting me my products. And actually it turned out to be all different. So he went on to explain and say, look, the agents, they charge a commission. And you only pay them a commission after they source your product. And the commission is so much lower than the money you save. So actually they go out and they get you a price that's 20% better than the price that you could get just because they're Chinese. And then they charge 5% of that. So 15% is still yours. So they do all of the work for you and they save your money at the same time. So it's a no-brainer to do that. I was like, well, that makes sense, but isn't it really the same if I talk to them? How can I trust these agents? And I say, well, look, if you have the right agent, you can do that. And in another video that I link up here, I'm teaching you how you can find your own sourcing agent. If the video isn't here yet, if there's no link appearing, that means the video isn't there. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell below so you get notified when that video comes out. So what could I do? He introduced me to an agent. Her name was Nancy. And it was great working with Nancy just from the get-go. So I spent 1 hour talking with her and I basically chatted with her and told her what product I was after and what changes I wanted to make. And immediately she consulted me and she said, I would never be able to get that product with the changes and everything that I want for the price that I imagine. And she was just open and honest with that. And I realized I could have never done it myself. So she made a few tweaks and she suggested some changes on the logo and the packaging. And then she went dark and for around 3 days. And she went out and looked for suppliers. She actually called them on the phone and made an impression if they're reliable and got me quotations and filtered them and ordered me samples. So after 3 days, she came back and she said, well, look, here are your quotations. I picked 5 suppliers for you that I think are best. And she gave an impression on all of these suppliers. And I looked at the quotes and initially I thought, well, they all look pretty good. But then I was struggling and I was thinking, well, maybe their quality isn't great because I couldn't get those prices. Their quality must suck. And then she went out again. And after 1 week, I had samples on hand and they looked good. Think about it for a moment. I spent 2 months sourcing my product that didn't work out. And she just spent an hour, or I actually spent an hour working with her, telling her what I want. Then she did all the work for me and I got samples and quotes that work. Isn't that crazy? Wouldn't you like to have 1 hour of work instead of, let's say, if you're really good at sourcing, 40 hours to get your product? I think that's really, really cool. But I never noticed that and I never trusted these agents. So once I found that was my secret. That was my hack. And that hack enabled me to source more than 1,000 products over the next years because I just kept working with sourcing agents and I kept tweaking my approach on how to find the right agent and how to do it right. And there were so many more things because obviously it's not only the price, but they do all of the work, right? So they went and customized the samples for me. I had this secure feeling because before I was always wondering, well, if I send my money to the factory, is it really going to be safe, right? But with the right agent, she just made that so clear and simple. She arranged a quality control. She negotiated with the factory. Actually, sometimes when things went wrong, she went to the factory herself and she talked to them and she made a deal and she got them to rework what was broken. And all the products were looking good before shipping them out. So she made this whole process so simple and so easy for me. And that's the way I can always now get the best price. If you want to learn more about this strategy and if you want to, hear all the details about that approach and learn how you can do it too, I have a free web class for you. It's down there in the description. Just look for the link, sign up to the free web class. And as a bonus, I even give you my supplier inquiry sheet that you can use to fill out with your product information and give it to the factory or give it to your agent and immediately get all the infos that you ask for instead of getting drip fed with your answers. Let me know in the comments, what do you think are you going to be going for? Are you more the do-it-yourself guy and you want to source yourself on Alibaba? Or do you also want to get a sourcing agent? Do you think it's a good idea? Let me know in the comments. I'm really interested what you think. I hope you liked this video that I opened up a little bit and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. In 2013, I left Germany. Nice outtakes, huh? In 2003. So think about that for a moment. I spent 2 months and let's really, and maybe you can relate to that, but